Canada has issued a joint statement with Australia and New Zealand calling for a pause in the fighting in Gaza. Signed by the three prime ministers, the document was released just hours before a UN General Assembly vote on a resolution demanding a humanitarian ceasefire. Justin Trudeau spoke about it as he headed into question period this afternoon.
This morning, Canada put out a strong and clear and comprehensive statement on our perspective and positioning towards the Middle East conflict. I just got off the phone with a long and detailed conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel, in which I outlined Canada's position. And we are committed to working with partners in the region and around the world towards an enduring two-state solution. Canada is committed to ensuring that Israelis and Palestinians get to live in peace and security within internationally recognized borders in peaceful and successful states.
That UN resolution we mentioned is under consideration at the General Assembly this hour. The CBC's Chris Reyes is at the United Nations, and she has more on the tripartite statement and the timing of its release.
This is an extensive letter. It's thorough, it's detailed, and it really leaves little room of where Canada stands in some of the more controversial aspects of this conflict. And I think that's on purpose. And I want to go through the points in the letter to give you some context in terms of why this is interesting that it's being released just hours before the vote on this resolution at the General Assembly. So it takes a hard line on Hamas, condemns the October 7th attacks. It also states that there is no place for Hamas in the future governance of Gaza. It recognizes Israel's right to self-defense, but it also recognizes Palestinians' right to self-determination. It opposes forced displacement of Palestinians or the reoccupation of Gaza. It reaffirms, and this is a controversial point that we have not seen in any of the resolutions here at the UN, that settlements are illegal under international law, that settlements and settler violence are serious obstacles to a two-state solution. It also gives a nod to the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar for negotiating that pause that we saw some weeks ago that allowed for the release of hostages. And it said that they want to see this pause resumed and supports urgent international efforts towards a sustainable ceasefire. This can't be one-sided. It again mentions Hamas and condemnation for those October 7th attacks. So the reason why that's interesting, Andrew, is that none of those details are in the resolution that Canada will have to vote on this afternoon. That resolution only contains a demand for a ceasefire now. It makes no mention of Hamas. It makes no mention of Israel's right to self-defense. And so it's telling that Canada would release this hours before the vote. My question is this a preemptive explanation? Should they have to abstain or vote against? Remember, they're voting against the backdrop of a climate where you are seeing the devastating toll of civilians in Gaza. We heard from Secretary General Antonio Guterres that Gaza is staring into the abyss. So I think it's fair to say that Canada doesn't want to appear isolated in the world, on the world stage, and it doesn't want to appear to be against any kind of action that would stop civilian deaths, but they might not be completely comfortable voting on a resolution that does not include all of the details that they have now put in this extensive letter.